So, no, I wouldn't say I have a passion for HR.
Welcome back to Human Resources for the People. It's a human capital
Today I'm going to be
revolution.
talking about hiring someone in Israel. It's part of my long running series about HR in other countries, comparative employment law, and it discusses the difference between a certain country and the rest of the world. I specifically focus on the United States and talk about the differences there, but I do try to compare with the rest of the world as well. So let's start off with a background check. So background checks are mostly forbidden inside Israel. If there's not a positive allowance, they're strictly forbidden. There are exceptions, of course, for government security and other job titles provided by law, but it is there. It's really, it sounds like no background checks in Israel. Of course, that's different from the United States that loves background checks, and frankly, most of the world allows background checks to some degree within the context of their data privacy laws. What I think is kind of interesting and frankly discriminatory is that employers who do childcare or care for disabled persons or persons with reduced mental capacity have to require all male applicants to provide police confirmation that they have not been convicted of a sex crime, but women are not required to undergo the same searches, undergo the same police confirmation. Credit checks are not are also forbidden by law, and for the most part, they don't frequent in the United States. They usually surround banking. But I did want to highlight this with respect to providing services to children. I understand the reasoning behind doing a background check in this circumstance, but I don't understand why women do not have to do the same background check. Israel seems to be very restrictive in general with respect to background checks, exams. Medical exams are not allowed unless there's a specific necessity for industry or job title, and it can't be a condition of employment when it's unrelated to the job. And again, you also can't drug and alcohol screen in Israel. And with both of these, it's very loose for the most part. Of course, you can drug and alcohol screen, and you can require a medical exam in the United States. It depends on what results from the medical exam that could cause problems, but generally speaking, you can. But I find this to be pretty interesting. Israel seems to be one of the most restrictive about digging into the backgrounds of its employees compared to, frankly, anywhere else that I've seen in the world. Western Europe does not have these sort of protections. Most of the communist places that we've reviewed do not have these sort of protections. And so it is a curious case of a very restrictive employment environment. Similarly, there is an absolute large number of protected classes, both stated and unstated protected classes in Israel. So in the United States, there are a few, and then there's a few more based on state. However, in for the protection of discrimination based on age, race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, pregnancy, fertility treatments, parenthood, marital status, nationality, country of origin, place of residence, beliefs, political views, and military service. In addition, the equal employment law prevents discriminations not listed in the law itself. So even though it's just listed a whole slew, 10, 12, 15 classes protected by law, there are an innumerable amount of discrimination that's prevented by this law that is not explicitly written in the law itself. That's significantly different than in the United States, where there are seven: race, color, religion, sex, national origin, age, disability, and genetic information. And there are no sort of unstated, outside of the state laws. There are state laws, for example, and I bring this up quite frequently because I think it's interesting. Caste is a protected class in Seattle, specifically surrounding caste from India, and that is quite interesting. It's a quite unique and local flair to this protection process. There does not have to be a written employment contract, but most employers choose to provide a written agreement and has to include main employment terms in a stipulated form. And that's the Notice to Employees and Job Candidates law. In addition, they can do fixed term employment contracts, and when they're not fixed term, they're considered to be 24 months. This is completely foreign and alien to the American environment, which does not have any contracts whatsoever and does not have any laws dictating them. And again, Israel seems to be very loose in other ways, right? So we have very strict with respect to background and onboarding, but there is no required probationary period permitted. There's probably a standard, but there is nothing set in law. We've seen everything from 6 months in our studies here to all the way to like 1 month as a maximum probationary period when we're reviewing these situations. And so it's interesting that once you get past the hiring process, Israel seems to sort of, move away from governing the direct relationship between the employee and the employer. Like most of Europe, most of the world, frankly, there is legislation governing temporary staffing through recruitment agencies. They have to have valid license. They have to limit a placement for just no more than 9 months. And if they're going more than 9 months, then the employee has to be hired on directly or be terminated. And the laws are pretty specific governing this in most of the world. In the United States, there's very little law governing recruitment agencies and what has to happen when they do occur. Well, that's it for my review of Israeli labor law. Let me know if there's something I missed in the comments down below. And if you liked the work, please like and share and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye, guys.